You know?
Yeah.
Because everything that's been happening is unique.
Yeah.
And the people around this are people that have a heart for what this is, whatever this is.
Correct.
And it's not about me. Amy was my 19-year-old. I have 6 kids.
Yeah.
And she has a friend, Tyson, at OSU, who's a senior there. He says to her, Amy, this book is way beyond your dad. And I said, absolutely right. You know? I understand why it was me. I understand why I had to be. I couldn't have written it at 49 years old.
Yeah.
You know, I wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And but it's way bigger than me. You know, I just did it as a gift. You know, I didn't say, "Ooh, this is cool. Let God please bless this thing, and I'm going to do great things for God with it." You know, none of that.
Yeah.
I'm not smart enough anymore to figure those things out. I'm just not. You know, and so I love what's happening.
I mean, we're talking about hardcover now?
Yeah, the hardcover, just $3,500. Okay. This is a funny story too. That's coming out around Thanksgiving.
Okay.
But we didn't even send it to the printers, and Barnes & Noble had it on their website. And we had the right ISBN number and everything, and we're kind of going, we're going, we got spies around here or something, you know? That's great. So you can go to Barnes & Noble, go to the shack. There's a little thing that says hardcover, and it lists for $24.95 or something. They got it for $17 something as a pre-order. Yeah, and that's great. That is so cool. And then the soft cover, $60,000, and then I mean, people are toying with 500,000 copy runs. And
The printing is still down here.
So far,
That's still down here. Okay.
still down in California.
Okay.
Yeah. And we might have to get 2 storage units. You know, and poor Brad. There you go. At some point, we're gonna need some help. You know? But it's one of those things where it's a learning curve. Everything. I mean, we've learned a ton about how the publishing industry works, and frankly, some of the big publishers have come and wanted to eat us. They come back to us, and
They were the ones that turned you down.
Yeah. And some of them are great people.
Yeah.
And like Thomas Nelson, they said, you know what? Even if we don't strike any kind of a deal, we're going to promote the book for a year. You know?
That's unheard of.
Wes Yoder, he's with Ambassador Speakers Bureau out of Nashville, I think. And Wes emails me, and he had been reading the book. He said, I finished your book sitting on the porch this morning, and I took it and a cup of coffee into my wife and woke her up and said, honey, you need to cancel everything you're doing today and read this. And he said, you know, the Lord's put it on our heart. And he's a publicist. I mean, he represents Frank Peretti. I mean, 100 of the top speaker people, whatever. And he said, the Lord's just told us without a contract to put what we do at your disposal.
Wow.
You know? And he's been huge for us.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's just kind of like your story, right?
Yeah.
It's just like out of nowhere. And it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
But it's the changes that is happening in people's hearts and lives that are just blowing me away.
Yeah, it really kind of, without you even knowing, it just kind of fillets you open.
Yeah.
You know, to just that journey, that experience. And I mean, that case law went fast. The one I bought off him, like pass it out to friends, and I actually have some at the border waiting to be sent out to friends. I just got to give those guys the addresses. But the people that we've given it to have just been blessed.
Yeah.
You know, they just come back and say we love it.
And they'll start conversations.
Yeah.
And conversations, and even in friends, that people have been through very great sadnesses, you know.
Yeah.
And I think there's 2 things that it's connecting to particularly. One is a lot of us have got a great sadness in our lives.
Yeah.
But all of us have a longing, you know, a longing for something that's real, a longing for, it's kind of like, if only God could be as good and kind and loving as we wished he was, you know? And this says, you know what, he's even better than that. And you get to see it.
Yes.
You know, it's not just some kind of abstract, it's inside a story which penetrates you anyway.
Yeah.
But you get to watch, and all of a sudden, your longing is being met by something out there, and the Holy Spirit's involved in this thing, and you just go, man, this is so beautiful. And conversations happen. The deep places open up. And people start saying, like one gal writes me, says, my 22-year-old daughter just came in and she asked me if it would be okay to divorce the old God and marry this new one.
That's beautiful.
Oh, yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I mean, when people meet you, let's say, I don't know, let's say a supermarket, and they find out that you are the author of the Shack, but they might not have heard of it yet. What do you share what the Shack's about?
Boy, that's a tough one, because you say it's a story of huge loss in the process of dealing with it. And I tell them the basic storyline that's on the back of the cover.
Okay.
That's basically all I can do. It's a guy who goes through what appears to be a huge loss in his life. There's evidence that his daughter is abducted and murdered. Evidence.
Yeah.
And then 4 years later, he gets a note in the mailbox that seems to be from God, inviting him back to the place where they discovered the evidence that his daughter may have been murdered.
Correct.
So now he doesn't know. Now he doesn't know. Is it from God? Is Missy still dead? Is she still alive? Is this the killer playing some kind of sick joke? Is he being lured away from his home so that something else can happen? I mean, is this a sick joke?
Yeah, like a really
sick joke.
Yeah.
So what's the deal? And so it's his going back to the shack and what happens. And that's where the story begins to really unfold. The first four, and it's not a graphic portrayal,
correct,
but it's tough.
It gripped you. I mean, my pastor is finding a very hard time because he knows. Well, because it's like on his to-do list.
Yeah.
Because he reads a lot. So as soon as we share with him the whole abduction, it's hard because he knows that he's going to have to experience the child going through that pain.
Yeah.
But one has to go through that and to
Yeah, and everything's a surprise. And you don't want to say more. You want to say you got to make it past the first 4 chapters. You got to make it into chapter 5, and if you can do that, we think this book will open up huge things inside your own heart. But it's tough. There's a point where Mac just loses it. And there was a gentleman in Portland who was speaking at his church, and he lost his son in Iraq 3 years ago, I think. And he said he had just finished reading the Shack. And he said, this is the best portrayal I've ever had seen in writing about how I felt. And
your heart just gets ripped open.
But it's real. I mean, this is the kind of pain that people experience. And this is, like, a lot of us are damaged, and a lot of us have been on a religious, we either avoid religion, or if we've been in a religious environment, it's all been performance, and it's all been shame-based and guilt, and God is watching us from a distance. That song that has, and He's not happy. He's watching us from a distance, and He's a little ticked off. Exactly.
About the cat's lightning or something.
Exactly. He's the Christianized version of Zeus. And
if anything, it's a healing for people who hold on to that image of God.
It at least challenges it.
For me, it's a healing. It opens up all sorts of different doors and absolute question marks.
Absolutely. And the book is not about one thing. The book is really broad, and so it's a big picture kind of book, rather than a lot of books are written to aim at something in particular. And so it's hitting people at so many different places. People are coming in saying, man, I couldn't get past the forward. The forward just blew me away, because I grew up this way. And some people are saying, it was the last chapter of the book that killed me. And some are saying, oh man, I bawled my way through chapter 11, or 15, or whatever. And the range of emotions and everything else that are part of this are just unique to what the person brings to it. You know?
I remember, now that you mention it, I remember with Matt being a kid around a tree and his dad. That was, I got angry when I read that.
I know the person that happened to. You know? So that adds the sense. In fact, somebody said when they first read it in the pre-publication version, they said, you got to take this out. This could never happen. Are you kidding me? I know who this happened to. Okay? I know a kid whose father would get drunk and he'd make him run around the backyard and he'd shoot at him with a pistol to see how close he could get to him. I mean, this is the kind of stuff that there are people out there that experience. And it is. But it's the kind of real pain that's out there. And all of us have experienced, or most of us, I think, pain to one degree or another. And a lot of times, unfortunately, it's been from our fathers. You know? And so that becomes a huge issue for men.
And it really screws up our relationship and image of God, because the way I view is sort of the way I view my father's relationship with me. And I grew up in a situation where I came home with an A and it's like, what's an A plus?
Exactly.
You know, I played competitive tennis as a junior. My parents never showed up for any games. And I graduated that. I was supposed to graduate anyway. So I always, felt like I had to prove myself.
Exactly. It's all performance, right?
Yeah. And so I had to heal from that,
And so a lot of times people don't have so much of trouble identifying with Jesus because he's a human being. Yeah, he's perfect, so that kind of separates us from him. We think that he lived his perfection because he was God, instead of the truth, which is that he put all that aside and he lived it as a human being. He never drew upon his deity. He couldn't have been the one who took it for me if he was, faking it. And so Jesus is easier to identify with. But God is Father, and that's the hard one. And we have the sense that I know a bunch of kids who graduated from Christian school, and they were talking, and their concept of God is lightning bolt in one hand, club in the other, waiting for me to do the wrong thing. And one of the boys who we love dearly struggled a lot. And he read the book this summer, and he came back and said, when this event happened in chapter 5, when God came through the door, my whole world changed. So it is healing. Some people, it's funny. It's being accepted across the board. People that don't have any religious background, people who have very strong religious backgrounds, everybody is being attracted to this. Now, there are some people that are having a hard time with it. And some of them are people that don't know how to receive experience directly. That's what I'm finding out. Is that there's a group of people that when they read something or interact with something, they don't have the freedom to actually interact with it personally. They look sideways. It's kind of like, do we like this? Oh, we don't like this? Okay, we don't like this. And they can say to you privately, I liked it a lot, but, and then they'll talk about everything that they can't accept in order to justify the distance that they're creating. But they experience things vicariously and not directly. And that's kind of sad. But it raises issues for them. And it raises conversations. I'm not afraid of people disliking this book or having a really hard reaction against it. That doesn't bother me a bit because it's not my deal. This is not about me, And if they decide they don't like it, there's purpose in that. God's not inhibited by anybody's response to this thing. It's his deal anyway, so I'm totally free about that.
That's true. And how many more? You're going to Malaysia in February.
I think Florida in March, and I'm going to Coeur d'Alene in December.
Okay. Tropical.
Yeah. That'll be fun though.
Yeah. So, I mean, so Malaysia's the only Asian trip
So far.
Okay.
I mean, and we're just getting started. I mean, I mean, if you think about it, we're 33,000 copies into this thing since May, and that's not a lot. I mean, when you think of how many people there are, it's not a lot.
Yeah.
And yet, it's springing up all over the place. And as it does,
But with the languages translation, you know,
that happens.
passes out.
And when it gets into Spanish, and you get some Portuguese and French, and you know, so it's all over the place. But again, it's building through people saying, "I want you to read this and talk to me about it," you know, and let's talk. And that's the kind of thing that touches your heart. You know, 6 or 7 people that you want to talk to about this, and you know people that are hurt that you want to give it to. So that's the way it's building, and the same
Purely viral. Purely viral in a pure way.
without a machine behind it.
It's
creating the
not human power.
Nope. And I mean, there's serious conversations about a major motion picture. There's, you know, we're working on the audio book, and there's no pressure to this. We don't feel like we have this window that we've got to ram this stuff through. You know, it's way bigger than that. You know, and frankly, I don't want to squeeze anything here. I don't want to say, "Oh man, this is now about me." I've been there, and I'm healed from that kind of crap. You know, and I'm not going back. You know, I like this. This is easy. And there's no pressure to this. And if it stops, I'm good. I'm fine. It already did way more than I had no expectations. So you know, it already's done way more than I ever thought it would. And, so it's fun.
I mean, that's incredible. I mean, you know, to be perfectly honest, I'm very curious how being a type A person, you know, being somebody who loves control, being a business person.
Sure.
You know, it's so difficult sometimes to kind of let it lead. And I wonder how that sort of plays into how I'm perceiving how you're living it right now, and actually orchestrating, you know, the typical goal setting, plan your business, work your plan, you know, that kind of stuff. I mean, it's such almost a disconnect.
Let me give you some advice. Don't pray.
That's what it starts out with.
Because you're going to make a mistake. You're going to say, "God, I really want to know your heart." Or you're going to say, "I want you to bring freedom into my life." Or you're going to say, I want you to grow the character of Christ in me." You pray any of those kinds of things, you're in it, brother. Yeah. He's going to go after everything that's in you that is not free.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
And he has no rivals, including type A personality. And so if he thinks you have an idol that's hurting you, it's going down. You know? And when it goes down, you're going to be screaming bloody murder, because you're going to think you need to cast something out, and it's God. And he's not going to go, because he knows what you really want. And you just were silly enough to give voice to it. Or even something kind of close. Oh, that's good enough for me.